there's got to be something inside you, and I don't know if there's an entrepreneurship gene, but there's got to be something inside you that lets you deal with the insanity that is like, I'm gonna go start my own business and put everything on the line for it.
Ed Laczynski, the architect. Ed founded Zype, an online video platform that gives content creators tools and abilities to manage their assets. Working in the digital media space for over a decade, I've met hundreds of executives and come across dozens and dozens of products trying to solve this space. As a fellow entrepreneur, I've always enjoyed our exchanges on managing teams across different countries and time zones, focusing on culture while keeping an eye out on the bottom line. So yeah, no, I've been coming to the LUMA event now. It's like a pilgrimage where you catch up with fellow entrepreneurs for last year there was like a storm, so my plane got rerouted. But I figured instead of just coming, since we launched Context, it would be a good opportunity to have some of the same conversations that we have, but recorded for younger generations of entrepreneurs to kind of get a sense. So we had lunch about, let's say, a year ago. And I felt it was like a wonderful conversation because there's very few people that I could really sympathize and empathize with who are out there in the trenches, right? So the first thing I want to talk to you about is your company Zype is an interesting one because you're hearing a lot about OTT, over-the-top connected devices, and AVODs, advertising video on demand, and direct to consumer. You are at the intersection of all those trends. So the first thing is, when did you get this sense that there was an opportunity here and started the company?
Yeah, I think for me, I had worked in advertising for agency and digital, like early digital, when the web, kind of between Web 1.0 and 2.0, and had a chance to see what was going to come in terms of video, mobile, convergence, and this promise of everyone has a device in their hands and can consume what they want. But at the time, we didn't have the bandwidth, we didn't have all this cloud computing available to us to start new things. And the devices just weren't there, right? Like, you could imagine doing this stuff you do today on your old BlackBerry, for example. Like, it didn't work. But I always felt like there was this opportunity to build a software company that can power all that. Like, I love B2B software. I love SaaS. I love the idea that I could write software with a great team and empower businesses to do something special, and it's still working when I'm sleeping. To me, that's really appealing to me, right? And so the idea for Zype really came from having some experience in video infrastructure and understanding the complexity of it, and that software can solve some of this. And then also on the kind of the personal side, confirming that idea by watching my kids just consume. My 13-year-old now, wow, I'm getting old now. And remember, I used to say this story all the time, and my kid was 11. So my 13-year-old was 5 at the time, and I'm just, what? I was like, what? And he's starting to get into watching things, and he's on my old iPad watching Power Rangers. Not using the cable box, nothing with Verizon's happening here, nothing with Comcast. This is pure sort of direct connectivity to the content, and at that moment I just knew that there was an opportunity to build a platform that can create connectivity for businesses. And I'm much more of a B2B guy than a B2C guy, so I want to be in the game with guys like you who are really understand the consumer and understand content, but how do I get in that game? Well, I can help build the picks and shovels.
Yeah, I knew that the world was really changing when my then 5-year-old was losing her mind when she couldn't skip ad on an advertisement. She was like, "Daddy, fix this." I was like, I don't have that kind of power. So, okay, so you're building a technology company in New York, essentially.
Yeah.
So what is the culture like? Because New York historically is finance, a lot of media.
Yeah.
LA is traditional media. You've had technology as if you had to be in the Bay Area. So what's that like? Times have changed, but where do you fit in terms of the ease of hiring talent? And
It's a great question. Hiring is one of the biggest challenges, as you know, CEO. It's probably the hardest parts of the job. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday on my team. I have to embrace it, and really I'm still involved in all the hiring, recruiting, prospecting, thinking about candidates, thinking about the kind of roles they might need in a year, and just starting to think about it, using tools like LinkedIn and all the, even Angel Lists, and all, just kind of say what's going on in the talent markets. And so every morning I'm sifting through that stuff. In some cases, looking for diamonds in the rough. In other cases, trying to find diamonds that are there already that otherwise wouldn't know who we are. I think the one thing that's key for us is we are a New York-based company, but our view is about a hybrid world. So while we are our sort of heart and soul is here in New York, majority of our employees are here. They live in Manhattan or New Jersey or Brooklyn or Queens or Westchester. They're all kind of in that metro area. about a third of our company is not in New York, and they're in places like Buenos Aires, Argentina, Guadalajara, Mexico, Washington D.C. area, Florida. So we've had to embrace that, and also for our New York employees, giving them flexibility. If I have someone that lives in Long Island and their commute is an hour and 45 minutes a day, I can offer them a benefit that maybe Google can't, and say, you can work from home 3 days a week. And so we built a culture that embraces the remote employee while still kind of focusing on end of the day. Like, I like having my staff meeting on Monday with my team, deal with all our things that are coming up with the week in one place. With good video conferencing, you can pretty much do everything. So we're kind of hybrid.
So you touch on culture and having employees a bit everywhere. So Montreal, I say people work to live. Even in cities like Toronto and New York, it's like you live to work. And there's good and bad in that. But how do you manage that added complexity where I don't think you're going to be emailing an employee in Buenos Aires and telling him like this needs a fix today. He's like, no, it's Saturday, it's Sábado, I'm not doing this. So was that an adjustment for you? Was it an adjustment for others? How do you deal with that?
Well, the funny story of Buenos Aires are all the holidays, and we didn't realize that. We started hiring down there. We built a team down there, great employees, like a lot of technical universities down there. Culturally, I think aligned, that like just generally, like, and they're sort of on the East Coast time zone, and it was really good. But then we started seeing like there's a national holiday. Every week there's a national holiday. So we had to like basically adjust to that and say, well, we want to stay in Buenos Aires. We believe in that area. It's a great place for us to hire. So we have to start staggering schedules, start thinking about that a little more. One of the things that we've had to do is very upfront in the hiring process, be very clear on the hours people need to work, which you would not do that in the US. In the US, at a technology company, media, it's kind of like, okay, if you're a salaried person, you kind of expect to work Monday through Friday and probably a little bit at night and probably a little bit on the weekends when there's an emergency or some kind of thing. You don't really have to have that discussion. Maybe in Canada it might be a little bit different, but in the US at least. And in these other areas, we have to have very upfront. So we have support staff down there, and we just hired a couple folks in Buenos Aires, and we're very clear, hey, we need you to work Tuesday to Saturday. And that's like we had to say that in the job description, in every interview, so make sure, and a lot of folks just bowed out at that point, but we did find people who are like, yeah.
Why the Saturday? Why Tuesday, Saturday?
Because we have staggered support coverage. So we want to be available for our customers 24/7, 7 days a week.
For that reason.
Yeah.
So when we were having lunch, you talked about, we touched on this theme of scarcity, meaning like I've never raised capital, so we've always had to come up with solutions to our problems. We can't just throw money at it. How do you manage that? Once you start raising capital, the tendency to just throw money at everything instead of solving it.
Yeah, I think it's along with hiring is one of the biggest challenges. How do you manage a budget as an entrepreneur, especially if someone like me, I didn't go to business school. No one like kind of taught me how to be an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur when I was a little kid. I had the lemonade stand, and I sold guitars and keyboards online before there was eBay, and I figured stuff out and figured out how to make money. But managing budgets, managing teams and those budgets, and is challenging. I think what's great about venture capital is that you get money that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get leverage on growth, right? You can grow things faster. The downside is if you don't have a scarcity problem, you have an abundance problem for a certain period of time. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs coming through that sort of typical seed, A, B round venture capital raise, there's a lot of pressure to get to revenue very quickly. The early sort of tales of Silicon Valley was, these investors would come in, they would give these companies a lot of time to incubate and figure out their business model, get scale and get traction, and then turn on the switch to make money. Google's that kind of story, right? It doesn't know, like Google almost went out of business before they figured out the click, the power of the click to generate money. For companies like ours in this like sort of next era of startups, there's a lot of pressure to make money very quickly and maybe cut some corners or not go as deep as you want with your customer or go as deep as you want with your product or platform before you do that. And I think companies like yours who kind of have to do that, they have to go they've made the right decisions always and watch every dollar are in some ways positioned to be more durable. And I think we've had to go through lots of up and downs. I think we're through that now. We've had 3 quarters of successive growth. We've been creating new customers. We've been moving up market because we finally built a product that the customer needs, and we finally were able to go as deep as we needed to go. But yeah, we waste a lot of money trying to chase sales early in that VC life cycle. That looking back, I'm like, yeah, I that we shouldn't have done that. You know, we should have not just thrown money at that problem. We should have thought about it more.
Last question. You're seeing the government invest in these opportunity zones and trying to spur, entrepreneurship anywhere. I guess, what do you think of that in the context of when Warren Bennis used to say, entrepreneurs are, are they born or are they made? Is leadership, are you born with it or do you become a leader? Do you think that entrepreneurs are born and made? Can anybody become an entrepreneur?
I think I would never say that anyone couldn't be, because I don't know. But I know for me, like this kind of lifestyle and being an entrepreneur and being what ultimately became like a CEO was like, I just had this in me from when I was like, I just always had it inside of me. Like I always needed to be someone who was like trying something new, who enjoyed seeing the effect of anything I created on other people, who wanted to make other people money too. I think one of the big, about a CEO, I'm sure you want your team to do well too, right? There's this sort of pull everyone with you. And that's like leadership at the end of the day. And you might be able to learn it, you might be able to be taught it, but there's got to be something inside you. And I don't know if there's an entrepreneurship gene, but there's got to be something inside you that lets you deal with the insanity that is like, I'm going to go start my own business and put everything on the line for it.
So this is the last question. So how do you manage that? How do you manage building something over a long period of time versus ultimately flipping it and moving on to the next thing?
Yeah, I think you have to, you have to like love the business you're in. You have to like what you're doing. You have to believe in it. You have to always kind of check yourself and maintain like, as an entrepreneur, I think as you get in higher stages, stay close to the finances, stay close to the customer, stay close to support, stay close to the technology enough so like you still can feel like you have conviction for that business you're running, and if there's a problem, deal with it early, right? Because I've seen other entrepreneurs sort of burn out because things got away from them and they didn't know how to fix it anymore. And they didn't have enough cash to bring someone else in to fix it anymore. So now it's like, hey, we got to sell the business. So if you don't want to be in that position, like stay close, stay with it. And as long as you still love what you do, I mean, for me, like this is my job. Like I love my job. So like I want to stay in this job. So selling a company or going for an exit is not, I won't have a job anymore. So like I love what I'm doing. Not to say that I'm always going to do what's right for our shareholders and our investors and all that kind of stuff. But if you love what you do and you stay close to what you do, I think that you can maintain that balance and ultimately be successful in a long-term, durable business.